Welcome. We like to call the workshop meeting to order. At this time, I'm going to call on Councilman W Fowler to lead us in our invocation.
Let's bow our heads, please. Father, we come to you this morning with a humble heart, thanking you for all the blessings you brought into our lives. Father, we ask you to continue to help in our country and help bring all those that have problems, bring sovereignty to them, Father. We ask you to continue to protect our troops and their families, Father. Bring them home safely. Be with them while they're here. Father, we ask you to bless this council and all decisions it makes. Father, we ask you to continue to bless all those that are within your earshot and all those that look up to you and seek help, Father. We ask all these things in your most precious name. Amen.
Okay, Mayor Pro-Tem Helms will lead us in our pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item on today's work plan would be the Pender County Emergency Management Update, and I'm going to call on Mr. Tommy Batson to come forward. Thank you for coming all this way across the county this morning.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for letting me attend and make a quick little presentation. I know I hadn't seen anybody from the town in an official meeting in over 2 years since I became director, but I just want to give you a quick update of some of the stuff we've done. In the past 2 years, we've upgraded our complete EOC with paint and all new visual audio equipment, as well as magnetic glass boards. We've purchased a 2,000 square foot warehouse across the street and fenced in 3/4 of an acre to support emergency operations throughout the county. We've replaced all 4 generators for our portable sites for sheltering operations. We've acquired a MERT, which is barricades and traffic cones that can be used for special events. It was acquired by a DIPPER grant and received 2 weeks ago, as well as we've added 4 additional weather stations to the county to include the Hampstead Annex, the EOC, Kiwanis Park, and the Burgall Park. And in the coming budget year, if the budget's approved Monday night, we will add 2 additional people, 2 variable message boards, a portable CDR, which is a communications rapid deployable unit, and we have a grant with the state for a prime mover. So that's just some of the updates, and as the town's probably aware of, the fire department and police department, we're doing a massive 800 radio megahertz update, and we're going to be working through that process this year with the county manager's office. So that's just a quick update of what we've done. There's not really a lot of people here for the public, and I'm going to shoot through this quick little PowerPoint presentation we did for Topsail Beach. The town clerk has a copy, so y'all can look at your leisure. Storm season's coming, as we know. We're requesting no hurricanes for the next 5 years. North Carolina's 4th on the list of the most hit state. Between 1526 and 1900, we had 139 storms hit North Carolina. Between 1900 and 1949, North Carolina was hit with 75 tropical systems. Only 9 seasons were inactive for us, so you understand we're Murphy to Manio, but here along the coast we get a lot of them. Since 1950, we've been hit with 12 major storms. Everybody knows the Hazel storm of 1954. It was a Cat 4. Donna in 1960. Diana did the loop-de-loo, which we had winds of 115 miles an hour. Bertha, that's the Surf City Pier picture. I know y'all, the ones of you lived here for many years, are well understand that. Fran, which devastated us just right after. Then Floyd was our flooding event. Isabel that hit the Outer Banks and Topsail Beach and Surf City saw winds of about 70 miles an hour. Irene came by. Matthew came up and flooded us again. Florence came and flooded us again. Dorian made a pass, and Dorian was a Cat 5 at one point. Isaiah, which was our storm 2020. Biggest thing is y'all understand about planning ahead, and everybody asks the outcome on hurricane season. Our biggest thing is, remember, it only takes one. Ask South Florida in 1992 when Andrew made landfall. But that's all I wanted to go through and just chit-chat with y'all. If y'all got any questions for us from our office, we're still here to support the town, and we work very closely with the police chief, the emergency management director, and the fire chief.
We appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Anyone have any questions? for
So
Tommy?
we won't have a communication outage like we did during Florence.
We're planning not to, and I was on the phone with the state highway patrol and the Viper system this morning because we've got a minor issue in the Virgil site, and they're working on it to get it up and running, but we had worked for a backup. We hope and pray we don't, and we're not asking for any storms for a long time.
So 5 years, let's say 25 years.
I'm good with 25 because I can retire in like 13. So, but I just want to stop, speak to you. If you need anything, reach out to me, call us. And I still enjoy coming over and having lunch and visiting the town.
We appreciate all you do for the county and for looking out for us as well.
Y'all, have a good day.
Hey, Trudy.
Next item is the resolution and surplus items. Carla?
So resolution to surplus sale or dispose of list, which is in front of you. Just need consensus to move that to July.
I'm for it.
Everybody good with moving those forward?
I'm good.
Okay. We have a consensus?
Yes.
Please move forward. Next item is going to be the PD 5-year plan, annual staffing analysis. I'm gonna call on Chief Voorhees. He actually has 3 items, the next 3 items on our agenda.
4.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
4.
3. 3.
3.
Okay, good. First, thank you for letting me be here this morning and present this to you. I want to talk a little bit about the 5-year plan, where we're going, where we want to be in 5 years, and the importance of having a plan to take us into the future. This plan was born the day that I was sworn in as chief. I'm a person that operates not in a gray area, but in an area black and white and in results. And putting a 5-year plan on paper, to me, is the best way that we can follow our roadmap for success to get us where we need to be. Analyze where, as a department, we are, as a professional agency, and where we need to go. Not working. There we go. So why the plan? For the roadmap for the future? Give direct input from stakeholders. When I talk about stakeholders, I talk about not only police department, but I talk about town officials. I talk about community members, business owners, and our officials from the school, because we have over 1,400 children in our community every day during the week, during the school year. And that's a huge population of children that we're responsible to protect. It sets that foundation for us. Where are we going? What are we doing? We don't want to get lost in the mix and have a solid foundation for us to grow into the future. And what does that all equal when we come out on the other side? It equals professional police services to the community. I'm a true believer. I believe deep in my heart that we provide services in Surf City that you cannot get from other police agencies in other areas. We provide those services, and I pride myself on the services that we give the community. So how did we get here, and what methodology did we use to come up with this 5-year plan? And what we did is we looked at and we used a SWOT analysis. We surveyed officers, town employees, the general public, business owners, teachers, school administrators, and we took all that input from everything and we put it into what we call a SWOT analysis. And that measures our strengths, our weaknesses, where we have opportunities, and what our threats are to those opportunities. And we completed a SWOT analysis for 7 key areas that we wanted to focus on as a department. Those 7 key areas are professional development, technology and equipment, hiring and retention, community policing, natural disaster preparedness, department policy, and patrol analysis. Our professional development, our officers, are they professionals? And what do we need to do to foster that professional leadership and foster them into the future and give them the opportunities that they need and be a professional organization? We also looked at, under professional development, our succession planning. So we don't want to give any one officer the skills to complete one critical job function and have no one else to take his place. When someone steps out of a role, we want somebody to have the skills to step into that role so we never miss a beat. And we haven't had that in the past, and that's one of the goals for the future, is to have redundancy set in place in our personnel, that when one person steps out of a role, another can step into it and we don't miss anything. Our technology and equipment, we've entered a phase in policing that I call the technology-driven policing. And to put the information at the fingertips of the officers directly relates to crime solvability. So keeping up with technology and providing that equipment that goes along with the technology to our officers and staying on the cutting edge directly results into, like I said, crime solvability and satisfaction to our customers, which is the public. Hiring and retention has been a challenge for numerous police agencies in recent times, and we had to take a hard look at the way we hire, how we retain our people, and what we're doing. We've completely made a 180 on the way we hire people. We've instituted a cadet program where we're starting to hire people with no experience and put them through BLET and put them through that training, simply because we're not getting applications and the quality of applications we'd gotten in the past. And how do we retain people? How are we paying them? How are we rewarding them? And how do we keep them here in Surf City? We've lost 3 officers in the last year, and we haven't lost them because they weren't satisfied with their jobs. We lost them because they made life moves. If we start losing people because they're not satisfied with their jobs, we have to take a look back at our department and find out why we're doing that. Giving the officers direct input into what we do and how we grow as a department and making them stakeholders gives them job satisfaction, and that job satisfaction relates directly back to morale. And also, how do we pay our officers? Are we equivalent to what other agencies are paying? Are our officers looking to go other places to make more money and to be on par with everybody else, or to be a little bit ahead? And what do we have to do to retain those officers? Community policing, we have in 2022, I believe, our best year ever of community policing. We have grown our community policing to a point where I didn't ever think it would be, and we continue to grow it in 2023. And I believe it has a direct reflection back on the police department as a professional agency. It gives us the opportunity to listen to the public, listen to their complaints, listen to their concerns, and directly respond to those concerns. Where are we going in the future with community policing? And how are we going to get there? And that's all part of the plan and setting goals and objectives on how and the roadmap. Our natural disaster preparedness, working directly with emergency management. James has done a great job putting all the plans together, but I want to take it one step further for the police department and put some specific plans together for reentry, patrol, how we're going to patrol during a natural disaster, and have plans in place so that I can, if I step out of a role or someone steps back into my role or whatever role has to be filled, that we have that on paper and that someone can step in and put those plans into action, and there's no guesswork in it. We know exactly what we need to do and where we're going to get there and how we're going to do it. Our department policy is what we live by and what guides us as an agency and what guides our officers' conduct. We don't ever want to get to the point where we're behind in our policy. And part of the 5-year plan is to every year turn over 30% of our policy, review it, change it, look at best practices, and replace it if need be. And if we continue to do that on a yearly basis and turn over 30%, we'll never get behind. Every 3 years, we'll turn over completely 100% of our policy. And then finally, our patrol analysis. Where do we lack in our patrol? Patrol is the biggest function in our police department and takes up the most personnel. Where are we lacking in our patrol? What do we need to provide? Where do we go from here? And taking a hard look at who we are, what we provide, and the shortcomings that we have, and be able to overcome those shortcomings are all part of this plan. So taking a look back at that SWOT analysis and how we use that and where we got that from, how we use it and where we're going with it is, and how it directly relates to the goals and objectives we've set. So if we take a look at professional development and we look at our officer training, our training is good, and we have strength in training. We have numerous training opportunities. We have motivated staff. We have monetary incentives for officers to go to training to get their certificates, and we actually give them monetary incentives for those certificates as they move forward in their careers. We also have a very strong FTO program to provide that initial training for officers when they come into the department. Some of our weaknesses that we looked at, we have a lack of certified instructors. We have a lack of promotion process at the supervisory level. And we have a lack of successional planning. And those are all part of the 5-year plan to solve those issues, and that's where our goals and our objectives come in. What are some of our opportunities under professional development? We have numerous training opportunities from community colleges to the Justice Academy to our federal and state and local partners. We also have a successional plan for retiring officers or officers separating from the department to put those plans into place and put those redundancies into place so that we do not miss any critical job skills. What are some of the threats to that? The pandemic obviously was one because it shut down a lot of our training. It shut down a lot of things for us, and we couldn't send officers places to get the training that we needed. Budgetary restraints is one of our threats. Our manpower needs, because our call volume continues to increase, and it becomes more difficult for us to take an officer off the road and put him into training. And also our community growth, because as our community grows, our calls for service grow, and the responsibilities for the police department also grow. So those are things that we have to overcome and look at. One of our goals under professional development is to enhance each employee's professional development through training, continued education, and succession planning, which in turn will have a direct effect on job satisfaction and community engagement. We give them the power to be a professional, and that directly reflects back on the police department and back on the town and makes us a professional organization. Some of our goals and objectives. Each key area has goals set and objectives within those goals to ensure success. Objectives are assigned to goal champions for research, recommendations, and completion. And those champions that are assigned this year are myself, Captain Johnson, Lieutenant Hauser, Sergeant Bailey, Sergeant Bright, Sergeant Hartsfield, and Sergeant Peterson. And how do we use, let me go back, how do we use those goals and objectives and put them into practice? And how do we get to where we want to be? And we use something called the SARA model. The SARA model is used by the gold champions, and we follow that proven method to reach our goals. First, we look at what's the problem? What are we trying to accomplish? Where are we trying to go? We analyze that and put that into practice. And what's our response to it? And then once our response is given, we go back and we look at it and we say, does it work? Did what we did work? Is it accomplishing our goal, and has it reached our objectives? If not, then we go back to what is the problem again and where are we at? And this is a continuing process that continues over and over and over again as we go through our goals and objectives to make sure that we're accomplishing where we want to go. And then finally, what do we do at the end of the year with our 5-year plan? If we don't continue to follow this 5-year plan as a living document, it just doesn't go anywhere, and we have to keep up with it. So we're going to analyze our completed goals and objectives. We can add or remove goals and objectives as we reach them, or we decide that they're not important anymore, or other goals or objectives have come to the forefront. Revisions and changes, goals and objectives may change, and it may still be important, but we may need to change the direction that we're going. We select new goal champions every year. So the core gold champions, myself and the captain and lieutenant, remain the same, but we'll bring other stakeholders in to give them an opportunity to put direct input into the department and help guide where we go. And then finally, at the end of the year, we're going to publish a report of all the goals and objectives that we've accomplished and where we've come as an organization, and publish that for the council and the public to look at so they can compare our 5-year plan and where we've come in the previous year and where we're going in the next year. And that's just a brief synopsis of the 5-year plan. It's a 40-page document. I didn't want to go through an entire 40-page document in the council meeting. All of you had it in your council packets, and I hope you had an opportunity to read through it and look at it and look at some of the goals and objectives and some of the things that we're doing in the police department. And if you read it carefully, you'll see that a lot of the things that are in there are either in progress, we've accomplished many of those things, and we're continuing to move forward. If anybody has any questions about the 5-year plan, where we're going or how we're going to accomplish it, I'd be happy to answer it.
Oh, I think you did an excellent job.
Definitely.
Excellent job.
Thank you. That 5-year plan, once I get a consensus from the council that all of you like it, like where we're going. It'll be published on our website so the public can see it, read it, and understand it. And then again, at the end of the year, we'll publish those results and put them up side by side with the 5-year plan so our success can be measured.
Asking for a consensus today to move forward with that 5-year plan?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm good.
Yep.
Yes, I think we should move forward, sure. Yep.
All right.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Moving on to item number 4, the PD resolution delegating police chief authority.
Oh, we still have one other thing, ma'am. Our 5-year, our annual staffing analysis review, which is also part of the PowerPoint presentation I have. So part of the 5-year plan was to come up with a matrix, a methodology for hiring new officers. And it's difficult because there's so many different places that information comes from, and there's a lot of methodology out there of where the trigger points are to actually hire new police officers. So I assigned this to one of our gold champions, and I assigned it to Captain Johnson for research, and it came back, and the way that you can look at this is so broad, and there's so many different police departments and agencies that are hiring and looking at how they hire and plugging in different formulas, that we needed to find something that was specific to us and would work for the town of Surf City, not just be broad and kind of a brushstroke across it. So what we're trying to do with this hiring matrix is successfully forecast from future manpower needs. I don't want to get behind to the point where we are looking to hire 10 officers all of a sudden because we just all of a sudden realize that we are so swamped that we can't keep up anymore. We need to maintain what we have and continue moving into the future without balloon years and having balloon hiring and spending. It eliminates that guesswork. Do I think we need an officer this year, or do we need one next year, or do we have too many people? We want to eliminate that guesswork, and we want to actually put this into practice and be able to come before council with hard numbers and hard facts and say, these are the facts, these are the numbers, and this is how many police officers I need moving into the future. We want to keep pace with demand. Our community is growing, and our call volume is growing, and I'm going to get into our call volume here in a minute. I think you're going to be kind of surprised at what you see, but we want to be able to keep up with demand and not fall behind. And again, like I said, it eliminates that balloon spending and hiring, because when we talk about hiring a police officer, we're not only hiring an employee. We have to train this person. We have to equip this person. And I believe that the police officer is probably the most expensive and the most equipped employee that the town will have. We're talking about vehicles, computers, weapons, protective vest, and all those things have a price tag that goes along with them. Radios, it becomes very expensive, and it is something that we have to eliminate the guesswork for and have the facts in our pocket to be able to say, yes, this is what we need to do. So the formula that we came up with, and we tried to narrow this down to what specific to Surf City that we need to look at as trigger points to hire a police officer. So when we look at a 5% increase in calls for service year over year, when we look at 162 housing units added, and there's a formula for those housing units of how many, and that directly relates to our population, and our population to the number of police officers. Then taking those numbers and completing a review and a comparison of data to departments that are of a like size. So are we comparative with other beach agencies in coastal North Carolina? Do we have too many officers? Do we not have enough officers? Are our crime index and our crime rate comparable to other agencies in the area? And where are we at, and where do we need to go? We also need to look at our increased number of special events and the amount of overtime our officers are putting in. We're taxing our officers more now than we ever have been in the past. Our special events are higher and more than we've ever seen, and last year was, I believe, our highest number that I've seen in overtime hours and overtime payout that we've had. So we're taxing our officers, and at what point do we take a step back from that and stop taxing them and put another officer on the street so that we can continue to provide those services that we need to? So looking back at calls for service, like I just spoke to in that formula, our calls for service in 2023, as of June 13th this year, our call volume was at 2,738 as compared to 2022, which saw a call volume of 2,079. That's a 24% increase in 1 year in calls for service, roughly 100 extra calls per month. And there's a standard in law enforcement called the 1/3 rule. And that 1/3 rule is that an officer should spend 1/3 of his time answering calls for service, 1/3 of his time being proactive on the street, and 1/3 of his time in administrative duties completing reports. And when we fall outside that 1/3 and we start seeing officers spending half their time answering calls for service and less time being proactive and less time for their administrative duties and investigations, then we have an issue, because now we've fallen outside the industry standard, and we need to take a look at that and understand that we need to get back in that 1/3 rule and give our officers the time to answer calls, do investigations, and be proactive on the street so that we can reduce the crime numbers and stay in the crime index where we need to be. Taking a look at our housing units, part of the formula also. So far in 2023, we've added 83 housing units. 83 certificates of occupancy have been issued, and we're expecting another 144 apartment units to be issued before the end of this year into early 2024. And I just want to point out that we are not going to add officers on forecasted certificates of occupancy. We're going to look at hard numbers of what's actually been issued. We can look at numbers that are forecasted for planning purposes, but we will not add those into any requests that say next year we think there's going to be 200, so we need to add an officer. We're going to actually use hard numbers of what's been issued. Does anybody have any questions about the housing units?
Are you going to also look at the census report to make sure you're trying to coordinate all the total residents we may have at that time?
Yes, sir. So census report directly relates back to looking at that formula and the housing units and our comparison data. When we compare our population to our officers and what are other agencies looking at in our comparison and industry standard. So I believe the industry standard, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but there is a number that's directly associated with the population to the number of officers that we should have. And as our population grows, we're going to compare that with other agencies and compare it to what we have, calls for service, housing units, and where we're at.
I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Am I correct about this or not? The census is kind of vague, because it's really not accurate, because you may put 144 housing units or 200 housing units, and those people may not be they may be in the military, correct? And their census may be somewhere else, but they're living here in Surf City. Is that correct? So, but they're people who live here you have to take service calls for, correct? So sometimes the census is misleading and vague. Is that correct?
I can't comment on the census. I'm not a census expert, but I can tell you that we're going to compare census data to the number of officers, but we're going to look heavily at that certificate of occupancy, because that's a hard number that we can compare, or we can put a national average per certificate of occupancy directly to population. The average in Pender County for a housing unit is 2.66 persons. So if we have 162 COs issued, we times that time 2.66, and that's going to give us our average number of population increase. And then we take that back to the national average of officers to population, and it would give us a pretty strong number of where we're at and how we need to grow.
Jeremy, to that question about the census, you are correct. I think you're getting mixed up with the election residents, because some of them still maintain their residence back where they're at for voting purposes. But the physical residence for census purposes where they're living at that point in that time. Got it. So there is a difference between them, but it can fluctuate.
Yeah, I was trying to understand that, which right. Is the difference between the two? Is the census I don't know, does the census take an account for if you live somewhere, period? Doesn't, okay, so even if I'm in the military and I'm based, I live in California, but I'm here, do I fill my census out for there or here?
Physical addresses.
You say for there.
Yeah, it's your physical address.
During the census.
Your voting can still be in California.
Roger.
Yeah.
Roger. Okay, got it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Do you take in consideration, like, the summer season, the majority of all of the homes on the island are occupied during the summer, and then, come October, there was a huge decline in the rental market?
Well, that's where the calls for service come in and the comparisons come in, that we can measure that. It's very difficult to measure our population, our tourist population, because it fluctuates. But that's where our calls for service come in. We start seeing those increased calls for service and increased demands on the police department. That's where that formula comes in. That's how we start to measure those parameters. Okay? All right. When we look at comparisons of agencies are reviewed for full-time officers, estimated population coverage, crime index totals, crime rate per 1,000 persons, officers to population, and officers to crime index. If the comparison indicates a shortfall of personnel, high comparative crime rates, or higher rates of officers to crime indexes, then we really need to start looking at adding additional personnel. And when we talk about crime index, we're talking about FBI statistics related to 1,000 residents per crime per 1,000 residents. And if you had a crime index of 80, it means that you're 80% safer than other towns. So we have to look at that percentage. And if we start to drop down and we're only 10% safer than all the other towns in the United States, there's a problem. So we want to make sure that we continue to keep an eye on our crime index to make sure that we're continuing and not dropping off. And our crime rate, it's the ratio of crime to population measured over time that track increases and decreases. We don't want to see our crime rate on a steady incline. We want to see our crime rate on a steady decline. So, and that's one of the things that we're also going to measure and take a look at. And before we hire any officers or before we come to council with any request, there's going to be an in-depth study into all these numbers and a presentation that we'll come to you with, and we'll be able to give you hard facts, hard numbers, and explain to you exactly why we need the officers that we're looking for. One quick example I wanted to share. Since the 2019-2020 budget, when council approved 4 new police officers, we plug in the numbers since then, and we've added, so that was the 2020, 21-22, and 22-23 is where these numbers came from. So we had roughly 400 single-family homes, 30 manufactured homes, 16 modular homes, for a total of 336 housing units. Or, I'm sorry, 336 apartment units for a total of 781 housing units. Now, when we divide that by the 162, that equals 4.8 officers. So when we look at that and we looked at the increase for calls for service, and they have grown, but not as substantially as they have this year, I think that equals 4.8 officers, and I think we're right on target of where we should have been. Coming this year, we need to take a hard look and make sure we're still in line, because we may start to fall behind here very shortly with our increased calls for service, our increased population. And I can tell you that in my 16 years here, I have never seen Surf City as busy as it has been in the last few years. It just seems like it's growing exponentially. Our housing units are exploding, our tourist population is exploding, and we need to keep up with that and make sure that we can provide the services that the people in this town have become accustomed to.
Last week was living proof of that
Yes,
statement.
ma'am, it was. It was very, very busy last week, and you see the call logs every week, and they are busy. Our officers are busy, and these weekends, they are taxed, and they go call to call to call, and we have crime just like there's crime anywhere else. We just may have it on a smaller scale because we're a little bit smaller town. As you know, last year we had our first homicide in 20 years. And we do have crime here. We have armed robberies, we have rapes, we have very serious crimes, and we have professional officers to handle these crimes, but we need to keep pace.
Well, I tell you, as busy as it is, I can honestly say that there is definitely a police presence in the neighborhoods, because up and down my street, without fail, there's always 4 police cars in a 24-hour period that comes down and up and down the street. The residents on my street appreciate that highly, I believe you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's one of the services that we want to continue to provide. And that's all I have for that. Does anybody have any questions? And I'd be happy to have Captain Johnson come up and answer any questions, because he put together a lot of the data on this and did a lot of the research on it. Because it was assigned to him as one of the gold champions, and this was one of the things that he needed to accomplish, and I think he put together a pretty comprehensive plan for us for the hiring.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. You did a great job.
Does this make it, really, it provides a mindless thought process more mindless for us, correct?
I wouldn't say it's mindless,
You get what I'm
Councilman.
saying, though, so we don't have, less questions on our behalf. This is the data that supports what you're requesting, basically.
So we'll come to you with hard numbers and data.
Go by and set a guess.
There's no guess, it's an educated response to it. This is what we need, and these are the facts, and this is how we need to move forward.
You did a great job. I did want to make one comment, though, and it may have been crystal clear, but it may not have been. For me, I jumped on it right off with my background. The third rule he was talking about, there are thirds, but they're not equal thirds. And what I mean by that is the calls for service is the first one. It's the one that you have to go do. The next one is the paperwork. For those calls of service, the paperwork has to be done. So I'm just trying to expound on what the chief had said earlier. If your guys are just completely tied up with the calls for service, that's reactive police work. Whatever's happened's already happened. Now you're going to it. And later you have to generate a report, so you're tied up again. There is no, you minimize your room for the proactive, where you eliminate what the potential problem's getting ready to be, or intervene while it's going on. Now you're proactive, and you've established what you were talking about, John, where the presence is there. Hey, well, let's don't do this, because it won't be just a minute. Somebody will be by. So anyway, I just wanted to expound on that in case. I thought that was heavier.
It's very true that
What was going on?
if we fall outside that 1/3, we start to lose services in other places. So, John, you may not see our officers on your road because they don't have time to be there, and they don't have time to do that proactive policing that we're doing.
That's what I mean. Even though there's a lot going on, we still notice that there, I mean, you can tell, you hear sirens with a fire, and you know if there's a fire, then there's some police presence there, but there'll always be a car that goes up and down our street. And in town. I mean, I see, that they're not just at a donut shop somewhere. You know what I mean?
And this whole thing, like I said, is we want to continue to provide the services that we're providing to the community. We don't want to fall behind, and we want to keep pushing forward as a professional organization.
Okay.
Okay.
There was a consensus on that as well?
For sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next one's yours, too.
It is. Mr. Brewer, did you want to handle that, or you want me to?
You've got the hot mic, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. So the resolution delegating the chief authority to make reports back to the ABC Commission on behalf of Onslow County. So we visited this for Pender County, and I was made the liaison to the ABC Board in Raleigh for reporting purposes, and we also need to do it for Onslow County. So this is kind of just a procedural act, I guess you would call it. But what this will do is it gives me the power to talk on behalf of the town to the ABC Board and make recommendations for ABC permits to the ABC Board.
It's just in line with what we have done. It's a functional, I don't see any problem with it.
Yes, sir. So we've already done it for Pender, we just need to do it for Onslow.
And at this time, I would be asking for a motion to
I'll
move
make a
forward.
motion, we approve it, and you go forward with it.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried to move forward with the Onslow County resolution.
Very good. Do you want me to move on to number 5, ma'am?
Number 5.
Okay, so the PD interlocal agreement with Onslow County ABC Board. We have entered into an interlocal agreement with Pender County, and once we did that, I contacted the Onslow County ABC Board, and we're entering into the same interlocal agreement with them. They are having their meeting on Monday, and if it is approved by our board today and signed, that paperwork will be sent to them this afternoon, and the ABC Board in Onslow will sign that on Monday, and we'll have an agreement in place. The agreement in place right now with Pender County is that we are going to start providing ABC enforcement services via the ABC Board. We have 2 officers that are in training right now that's required with alcohol law enforcement. It's a 2-week course, and they will be directly responsible for enforcing ABC rules and Chapter 18 violations. It's something that we've never been able to do in Surf City before, that we've always relied on outside agencies for, but now we'll have the power and ability to hold ABC permit holders accountable for their actions or their shortcomings.
I make a motion, we approve it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried to move forward with our interlocal agreement with the Onslow County ABC Board.
Thank you. I think that's it for me, so
All right.
I'll run away from the mic now if I can.
Again, thank you for all you do and for the entire police department for looking out for us and making things run a little smoother in town.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that.
Item number 6, the budget ordinance amendment for the accommodation fund year end. I'm going to call on Melissa, our finance director, to come forward.
Morning, Mayor and Board. Before you this morning, we have 3 budget amendments. One is for the accommodations fund. We're going to ask that you approve these today. This is to close out the budget year and make sure we have no over expenditures. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Everybody had a chance to review those? Have any
I'll make a
questions?
motion, we approve it.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Next budget amendment is for the general fund. Same situation. We're making sure we have enough money budgeted to ensure we have no over expenditures for the year.
Make a motion, we approve that also.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And we also did one for the water fund as well. This is to ensure we have no over expenditures at the end of the fiscal year.
I'm making a triplex. I'll make a motion, we approve that as well.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 9 is the flood map CRS update, and I believe Amy's going to come forward.
What?
There it is. Good morning. I just want to do a very, very brief conversation about the FEMA flood map update, or the firm maps. Just a little background, the flood map is the official FEMA-generated flood map that shows a community's different flood hazard areas. It's used by the National Flood Insurance Program for floodplain management, mitigation, and insurance purposes. This map defines our flood zones and our base flood elevations. So this process has been going on for a while. So our current map was adopted on February 16th of 2007. In North Carolina, we are actually creating these maps, and then FEMA is approving them. So you'll see reference to other agencies in here other than FEMA. But the North Carolina Department of Public Safety notified the town on September 2nd of 2014 that the maps were going to be updated. We began internal meetings on September 26th of 2014 and held public meetings in 2015. The town acted on behalf of the residents, and these meetings that were held through 2015 and early 2016, we took all of the appeals information and requests and we submitted them as the town so that the individuals did not have to submit those requests. In November of 2018, FEMA provided the town with a letter stating the preliminary information would be provided to start the 90-day review process. Fast forward to May 11th of 2023, and we received the actual letter saying that they were starting the 90-day process. So that was advertised on May 18th and May 23rd of this year. So town staff will hold an open house here in this room on June 29th, 2023, from 4 to 6 p.m. We'll be getting information out about that hopefully today. That will just be a drop-in, ask questions. There will be no presentation at this meeting. It'll just be come in and chat with us if you have questions. The following slide will have the link to the Frizz site, which we will talk about. The appeal window for this set closes on August 24th, 2023. If appeals are received, FEMA will review the documentation, but please note that if you appeal, you have to provide technical and scientific evidence. You can't just say, my house is never flooded. You have to have technical and scientific evidence for them to review the appeal. You can, however, say my street name is wrong, or there's a typo or something like that. Those things can be put in. But any request to change your flood zone would require that technical and scientific evidence. FEMA will provide notification to the town once they approve the final maps. Once those maps are approved, the town has 6 months to adopt the final maps. The reason that we need to adopt them is that qualifies us to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program. If we do not adopt those maps, we cannot participate in that program. So FEMA has a few pages that you can look at to get additional information. They're a little bit harder to go through than the North Carolina Flood Risk Information System. For those at home, that can be found at FRIS, which is fris.nc.gov. And you will need to change the map from effective to preliminary to see the proposed maps. And I'm just going to show y'all real quick where that is in a picture. If I need to pull up the website, I'm happy to. Otherwise, if you can see in this top right-hand corner, once you zoom in, there's an effective and a preliminary. You'll want effective is what's in currently. Preliminary is what is proposed. Topsail Beach has North Topsail was allowed to adopt theirs, but it stopped at the town line, not the county line. So if you look in this picture, you see how there's the blue AE zone that goes up against the VE zone. That AE zone is going to carry through. It's not a weird hard line there, but that just kind of shows the difference between the preliminary and the effective. And then, so that's just, and if you pick the preliminary and you're at that end, you'll notice that the other maps are grayed out because they are not preliminary anymore. They are effective. But if people have questions, they can call Town Hall, ask for myself, Amy Kimes, or Steve Paget. Steve is our actual flood plain manager, but he's also a building inspector, so he was busy this morning inspecting buildings, so I'm here. But we are happy to ask questions, walk you through the website or whatnot. We will have computers set up that night with the website, so you can come in and say, I live at 214 West Florence Way, and we'll pull that up and look at it and show you what your map is. Does anyone have any questions?
This information is going to be put on our website and go out social media
Yes, ma'am.
this week?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And like I say, I obviously wasn't here back in 2014, 15. There was a lot of town time that went into providing appeals for this. There were significant changes made based on the town's appeal requests on behalf of our residents. So it has been significantly updated from the original one.
And Madam Mayor, if I may, the flood risk rating system has recently changed and has gone to this, what they call risk rating 2.0. So in the past, we would have seen firm maps change and then insurance rates directly affected by those changed maps. But now those are evaluated on a true risk-based system, not an adopted map. So generally speaking, individuals with flood insurance, first and foremost, always need to talk to your insurance carrier. They're going to be the one that gives you the most accurate information about your property. But if you were at a AE elevation 12 and now it goes to a 14, you're not as affected, I guess I can say, with the risk rating 2.0 as opposed to where we were several years ago, where there would have been a direct non-compliance with current flood maps. We still use the regulatory flood maps for new construction, elevation certificates, et cetera, but generally speaking, when you go and get flood insurance, you're not producing that information because insurance agents are putting addresses into the risk system and then generating what that outcome would be. So I just wanted to provide that information more so for the public. But again, we'll be happy to answer these questions or try to answer them the best that we can. But specific in regards to effects on flood insurance policies, people certainly need to talk to their insurance agent to get the best information. So.
Any other questions for Amy?
Mr. Brewer makes a very good point. We're not in a position to provide quotes on premiums. We'll assist any way we can as to the technical data, but as far as the dollar amount of your insurance or lack of insurance should be discussed with your insurance broker or agent.
Any other questions? I think that is all on the agenda. You have anything else, Kyle?
No, ma'am, Madam Mayor. I will be out next week on vacation. I have sent an email to department heads for some delegation of responsibility and authority. I've shared that with the mayor this morning. But again, if you need me, if there's something going on, I should be able to have communication. So just want to give you that heads up.
Thank you.
It's okay. Please do.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We are adjourned.